on now to lists. This is the continuation of the data types we started last week. We talked about integer. We talked about numbers and then integers and then doubles, and then we talked about strings and then booleans. So we are continuing with lists. So let's just hold other data types. Hold a sequence of them, a collection of them. Then as just a single unit with a name. So it's like combining multiple variables into one and then naming it, so you can just access them all at once, or you just collect them into one item. So an example is this over here. Lists are denoted by square brackets. The elements of lists are put in square brackets. You see other data types and they will see what they are put in. So this is for lists. And then we see the elements in the list are separated by commas. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5 all separated by commas and then put in square brackets. So this is an example of a definition of a list. A list and then ages is equal to 22. Then list of ages. And then you can so when you define lists, the data you put in here, the individual elements are also supposed to have types. Over here, these types are inferred to be integers. And then over here we specify explicitly that the data types we put in here, the elements we put in here are supposed to have the data type string by putting by specifying that in angle brackets. And then so our list, which is going to contain strings, and then our list name is called names. Sorry, there's supposed to be an equal to over here. So there's supposed to be an equal to over there. Then it's equal to the names Yao, Randy, and Jack. Then yes, that's that. Then we can also use the var to define lists. Then this list has the contents of this list is like dynamic, because it's a mix of different data types. So we have Jack over here, we have 22. Let's say this is information about one individual in our database. We have the name of the individual, the age, the city the person is in, and then like his CW or something. Let's see. So Jack is 22, lives in Kumasi, and then has a CW of 87 points, whatever. And so that's that. So these are definitions of lists. Example of definitions of lists. Then to access the elements in the list individually without just taking the whole list, we can use their indexes. The indexes start from 0 and then they count on to the last index of the last element. So there are 4 elements in this info list over here, but then it has four indexes which start from 0. Jack will have the index 0, then 2 have the index 1, Kumasi will have 2, and then this will have 3. So if you want to access it, you subscript info with the index. So over here, let's say we are using age over here. Age with a subscript 0 will return 22, because 0 is the first index, and then the first index is linked to this. The indexes are serving as like keys to access these values over here. So if you do age subscript 1, you get 21 over here, and then on and on and on. Age subscript 2 give you this, age subscript 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, so that's that for lists. I think this is a cool example for lists I have. Lists, we have a list over here, ages. Then we just print out the individual elements of this over here. So just print subscript 0, subscript 1, subscript 2, and subscript 3, which subtracted 4, which returns these values over here. It returns 22 for 0, subtract 0, 21 for 1, and then 22 for 2, and then 4 will be, you skip this, then we print 4, which is 20 over here. And then there's another example from using our info list. So there's our info over here, and then you can print it in a string form. So let's say, just as I was saying, my name is Jack. Here this is this element over here, because it's the first element, and then the first element is subscripted, has the index 0. Jack from Kumasi, and then I am 22 years old. It's 2 is linked to this over here, because it's the third element with the index 2, and then 1 is the age. So that's an example. Let me run this code for you to see. Okay, so lists. Okay, so this is our code over here. So I can make this a little bit bigger, and then you go that. Then you run our code, and then you see it prints out 22, 21, 20, and then 22 again, and then 20. It skips 24 because it didn't access ages, the index 3 from ages, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. So we didn't access 24 over here. We didn't access this index over here, this element. And then we skipped, and then we printed just the index 4, which is the fifth element over here. So we printed 20 instead. Yes. And then this is the other code, the other list we had with info. And then that also prints my name is Jack from Kumasi, and I am 22 years old. So that's that. And then again, you can look through lists. You see, accessing these values from the list is repetitive, and then we definitely wouldn't want to repeat ourselves when doing this, because if you have a big list and you want to print every 10 minutes, we just have to go through every one of them. Then that's not cool. So let's see, there's this lists have this method called for each. Hey, it just accesses all the elements in your list one by one. So when it gets the elements from your list, you get to do with this whatever you want. So this is an example of the for each. So we have our list of strings here, list of strings in angle brackets, the names, and then we have Ruth, Josh, and then Fred. So we have we then apply this method to the for each method to our list over here. You see over here, you don't just wrap them. You don't wrap like name quotation marks. Sorry, in the brackets, but then we just access each element with the for each. Then so for each, going to have an anonymous function over here. See, this is a function with the curly brackets, and then with the normal brackets, and then a parameter, and then this. So the for each takes every element from the list, and then it names the element. Then that element is used in here. We use the element to do something. So over here, for each of the elements in our list names, then this is our block of code, the block of code that we run. So we just print out the name, the elements that we've gotten, that single element that we've gotten, then we turn it to uppercase, and then we print it out. So that's what this does over here. So let me run this for you to see. So that and then for each. then we run out for each. Let's see what happens. You see, we have Ruth, Josh, and Fred all in small mixed keys, and then when it's printed out, it prints out Ruth in all caps, and Josh in all caps, and Fred in all caps. And then we have another for each over here, another list over here, where we just loop through it, and then for each of the elements we just multiply the element by itself. So that's like square. We are squaring the elements. So this over here, there's another. Let's also have another function called add. So you may be wondering how you add a list. You add an element to your list. You can just equate it, or you use the add method, which adds whatever is in the brackets to the list. It just appends it to the end of the list. So it adds it to the end of the list, and then it keeps doing that. So over here, we have a different an empty list over here, which is called squared, and then for each of the elements in figures, because the method is applied to figures. For each of the elements in figures, we just multiply the element by itself, and then we add it to squared. We just append it to squared. So it's just, so first we'll do 12. The first element will be 12, and then multiply or square it, and then add the value to the squared over here. And when it's done, it just prints out the squared. So 12.2 squared is 148 blah 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 83999. That's as you see over there. And then it keeps the add, just appends it to the end of the list, so just adds it to the bottom. So as you can see, 12 goes first, it's added first, and then the next is not added to the beginning of the list, added to the end of the list. You get it? So it does that, and then there's it. You can also loop through lists, looping through lists, and then so here's an example, just looping through the list. We just loop through the list, and then it just prints the list. So we have a loop over here, which is in a function. We define a function which just prints each element in the list, and then we loop through all of them using the indexes from a for loop, using a for loop. Then it moves to the index of the list, and then prints them out, prints the elements out. And then you see over here, there's another method used over here. This is actually a property of lists. The length is a property of the list, so we get the length of the list. So let's see over here. Over here, we call our print list over here, and then we put in this argument, which is names. Names has 3 elements. So the list dot length over here is going to retain 3 because it has just 3 elements. But then it has indexes 0, 1, and 2, which does include 3. So the length, the number of the last index is like the length of the list minus 1 always. So that's that. I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to run these right here. And then there are some other methods. There are some other methods of lists over here. So you can access the elements. You don't always have to use the square brackets to access elements. You can just access them with the elements at, which is another method which takes an index and then a number as an index, and then it just retains the elements at that index. So that's the elements at method, and then the add method. Then you have remove to remove elements from the list, and then for this one you don't remove with the index, you move with the value, the actual value. So over here I'm moving Calvin from our list over here. So when I run this, you see that Calvin will be missing from the list when it's printed out. And then the length, to get the length, then other properties are the first this returns the first element, sorry, the last element. So our list dot last returns the last element in our list, dot first returns the first. And then there's one last one where we check if our list contains this value, which is so our list which is people, then dot contain then Larry. So we check if our list contains that string. And then this over here returns a boolean, either true or false. So if it contains Larry, return true. If it's not, it doesn't, so just return false. So let me run this too, and then let's go to the number one. Prints people. So it prints the first element, the elements at index 1, which is Calvin. And then next it adds Joe to the list. As you can see over here, prints the whole list out, and then adds Joe to the end of the list. And then over here we move Calvin, which is removed, as you can see over here. And then we check the length. We check the length of our list. And then the length of this over here is 2, so it has just 2 elements. And then we check the last element, which is Joe, and then the first element, which is John, from this list over here. And then we check if Larry is in the list. Like, we don't have Larry in our list over here, so it's false. Yes, so that's some methods for lists. You can get more from the Dart documentation.